Now, I probably should have called this the CMC revenge game. After all, it's the first time he's going up against his old team, despite it being over 3 years since he was traded. However, it's far funnier to instead make this game all about Eddy Pinero, the kicker who swapped sides this last offseason. Regardless, we'll see if either of them can get a win against their old team in the simulation, but first, we've got to get behind the bar and make our drink, a Carolina Mai Tai.
Well, 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 look what the cat dragged in. The Panthers, making their first and only appearance in this series, taking on the 49ers to close out Week 12. Now, the 49ers are no strangers to this series. They've been on twice already. They'll be back here in Week 16 and potentially Week 17, depending on how the vote goes. So as a result, we're going to start with Carolina and their representative, Cheerwine. Now, I will admit, I did seriously consider using Moonshine as the Panthers representative, but I feel like Tennessee has a stronger Moonshine connection, and I've been trying to cut down on the amount of new bottles that I have to buy for this series. Sadly, it also doesn't look like there's any sort of real signature alcoholic beverages associated with either the Carolinas in general or Charlotte specifically, but thankfully, they do have a soda. Cheerwine is a cherry soda made by the Carolina Beverage Company of Salisbury, North Carolina, which is just about 40 miles northeast of Charlotte. This is a cherry soda that dates back to 1917, which actually makes it relatively young when compared to sodas like Dr. Pepper or Werner's. However, it does claim to be the oldest continuing soft drink company still operated by the same family, and they do seem to have a very strong claim to that very specific title. As for the soda itself, like I said, this is a cherry soda, but it's really more of like a black cherry soda than it is like a neon red cherry soda. It actually reminds me of Dr. Pepper in some ways, as it's not like a super sweet soda, or at least it doesn't read as super sweet, but obviously it lacks a lot of those additional notes that the pepper has. Now, I know we used the Mai Tai for the 49ers back in their Week 7 game against the Falcons, but San Fran is also home to one of the most famous variants of the Mai Tai, the Chinese Mai Tai. Hailing from the Li Po Lounge in San Francisco's Chinatown, this drink was first made famous by Anthony Bourdain's trip there in 2012, where he described the drink as fucking lethal. And honestly, based on this drink's spec, I believe the man. The Mai Tai label on this drink is quite deceiving, as it actually lacks the most signature element of a traditional Mai Tai, that being the orgeat syrup. Additionally, instead of being a shaken drink served over crushed or cracked ice, this is actually a blended drink, which makes it easier to hide the crazy amount of booze in this drink, as the bar lists the ingredients as dark rum, white rum, overproof rum, Chinese liqueur, and some pineapple juice to balance all of that out. Now, I was initially going to do this mashup as more of a traditional Mai Tai, shaken and served over some cracked ice. But the more I looked at the spec, the more I just knew that it had to be a blender drink. I used Dave Arnold's Liquid Intelligence to get the ratios for this drink, but sadly, based on our ingredient list, it was literally impossible to get to the recommended values for the 3 pillars: booze, sugar, and acid. Now, the problem here isn't the booze. This OFTD rum will ensure that this drink packs a punch. The problem here is our sugar and our acid percentages. See, the truth of the matter is our pineapple juice and our cheerwine just have too much water in them. So there's too much extra dilution from the ice, and we can't hit the recommended sugar and acid concentrations to really make this a punchy blended drink. Now, if I really did want to make this drink as good as possible, what I could do is add citric and malic acid to the pineapple juice to bring that up to like a lemon or a lime strength juice. And then I could reduce the cheerwine into a cheerwine syrup, so taking out basically most of the water and leaving us with a more sugary syrup. However, that's all way too much work to do for an in-season video, so I might revisit that in the off-season. But for this spec, we're going to keep it simple. I'm going to start off with a 1/2 ounce of our white rum. This is mostly just here because, that's a full ounce. Oh well. Heavy pours and whatnot. It's a blended drink. I don't think it'll make a whole lot of difference. 1 ounce of black rum. Surprisingly, black rum actually has a lot less sugar than I thought it did. I thought this was really going to help us by adding extra sugar to the drink, but there is a lot less sugar in this, despite it being back sweetened with molasses, than you would expect there to be. 1 ounce of our OFTD rum.
If you have like a Navy strength rum, you can use that instead. This is our stand-in for the 151 rum, as like I said, way back in the Caribou Lou episode for Kansas City. 151 rum has been basically discontinued. You really can't get it anywhere anymore. So we'll be using this instead. Half an ounce of our Baijiu. Now, technically, the Chinese liqueur that's used in the Chinese Mai Tai at the Li Po Lounge is NKP liqueur. I might have been able to get a bottle of that if I went to the liquor store in Chinatown here. I wouldn't be surprised if they had it, but I'm not going to buy an additional bottle. I've got a perfectly good bottle of Baijiu right here that should be close enough to kind of replicate what that NKP is doing in the drink. 2 ounces of our pineapple juice. So like I said, we are relying on this for our acid in this drink, but the truth of the matter is pineapple juice just doesn't have a lot of acid in it. So this drink might feel a little weak at the end of the day. And then finally, 1 ounce of our cheerwine. Got these dope-ass glass bottles. That's actually a twist off, but it just felt so much cooler to pop it open with the bottle opener. Go add some color to this drink as well. Fuck yeah, that's good stuff. Hell yeah. All right, and then I'm gonna add to this about 8 ounces of ice. We'll see how much I ultimately need, but should probably have cracked these anyways to make it easier on the blender, but yeah, make my bed, I'll lie in it. All right, so I'm gonna take this over to the blender, blend this up, and then I will be right back. All right, so I'm back with our blended up Carolina Mai Tai. Gonna pour that into the closest thing I have to a hurricane glass. Sadly, it is not a true hurricane glass. It's actually a beer glass, but ooh, it is perfect for our purposes. See, there you have it. This is our Carolina Mai Tai. Give it a try. Ooh, that's strong. That is, yep, that is booze forward. That is a strong drink right there. This thing's lethal, that's for sure. And sure enough, man, you know, Dave Arnold, he knows his shit. This drink does not have the bite nor the sweetness that it really needs. It's definitely closer. I have to double check my spreadsheet because, of course, I made a spreadsheet to try to work out all the ratios for this drink to see if there was any way I could sort of finagle these ingredients into what it should be. But just with this core spec right here, it was literally impossible to get the acid and sugar levels high enough because, like I said, these two ingredients right here, our two non-alcoholic ingredients, just aren't concentrated enough to get up to those levels. So the result is that when you dilute this drink down by blending it with all that ice, the acid and the sugar fall way down, right? So just the natural dilution obviously drops the concentration of those two things, in addition to dropping the alcohol concentration down. But the big thing is that I think it's you taste sugar less when it's colder, if I remember correctly. It's one of the two. It's either acid or sugar that you taste less when it's colder. I'm pretty sure it's sugar. So as a result, you actually want to go even higher when you're doing the spec for that, because there's the first step of the dilution, and the second step is that you taste it less. So you basically need to double overcorrect to account for those things. And I just wasn't able to do that with this spec. And so the end result is a drink that is like very punchy, but doesn't really have the necessary sugar or acid to kind of balance out all of that alcohol. That said, this is a very
pleasant blend of alcohols. So very surprisingly, considering everything that's on in this drink, plus the incredible amount of dilution, man, that Baijiu still comes through. Like, those sorghum notes are straight through. That sort of like, grapefruit, pink peppercorn, kind of like fermented note. Like that comes straight through in this drink, and it plays really nicely with the pineapple and with some of the funky notes from our OFTD rum. Like, the flavor combination is good here. This is a great example of a drink where the flavor combination is very good. It's just those fundamental ratios that are off. I'm very curious now. I really do want to make, like, in the off season when I have some more time to put into it, a like done properly version of this drink, because I think a version of this where like the pineapple juice is brought up to like lime strength, and this cheerwine is reduced down to a syrup, and then everything is balanced accordingly. I think that would be really good, because it's such a lovely combination of flavors, and it is a very kind of like, this is a Mai Tai very much in that sort of like bastardized like 60s, 70s era Mai Tai, where it's all about like the fruit juices that are in it. This is not like your traditional, Trader Vic's Mai Tai at all. But it does make like all those fruit juices and all of these different, alcohols that we have in it. It makes for a very lovely kind of tiki style drink. It needs more acidity. It needs more sugar. It does really suffer from that. The fact that you can get this drink so cold, so that's a fun thing about blending drinks. When you blend a drink, you can actually, because of all the alcohol in it, get it to below 0 degrees Celsius. You can get it below freezing. So this is an incredibly cold drink, which means despite there being a fuck ton of booze in it and not a lot else, it does actually go down quite smoothly. But it needs that extra punch of sugar, that extra bite of acid to make it pleasurable while going down. Right now, it just kind of goes down smoothly, and that's kind of it. It needs that extra flavor punch to it. It is also very funny to be drinking this drink on what has been like the coldest day in fall so far. Very surreal kind of experience to be like, ooh, I'm all, it's windy and cold outside, and I'm all tucked up here warm, and then make a blended tiki drink. It's a very kind of funny combination. The cheerwine really doesn't come through, like really, the flavor profile, especially because of how cold this drink is, it really is kind of dominated by the Baijiu's notes come through very strongly. They pick up the pineapple coming through. I wouldn't say like this drink is like pineapple forward, but it's kind of a similar thing to the Queen's Ward cocktail that I made for Jets Patriots, where you're getting some of the flavor notes of the pineapple coming through, but there's not the sort of sweetness that you typically associate with a pineapple coming through. So it doesn't read as like pineapple per se. It reads more like pineapple core, as opposed to like the real good part of pineapple. I think that cheerwine might actually come through a little bit. I think I might be getting a little bit of that cherry in there as well. But it's certainly weak, which makes sense. There's only an ounce of it in there. It's not super concentrated. It is actually a relatively high sugar content soda, despite not tasting like crazy sweet. But it does come through a little bit. You do taste a little bit of it. But yeah, this drink is definitely going to put me on my ass. So we'll see if the 49ers can put the Panthers on their ass in the simulation.
The Panthers start with the ball, and the 49ers cover the kick well, stopping the return at the 24-yard line. Their defense also stops the Panthers' offense, forcing a 3-and-out on their opening drive. Meanwhile, the 49ers' opening drive takes up literally the entire first quarter and ends in dramatic fashion. As they go for it on 4th and 2 from the 2-yard line, Brock Purdy scrambles, rolling left out of the pocket, and takes it in untouched to cap off their lengthy drive with a touchdown. The The 49ers defense forces another Panthers punt, and their offense drives back to the red zone, where Purdy hits Kittle on the out route to extend their lead to 14. Facing another 3rd and long, the Panthers finally catch a break as Bryce fires a dart into quadruple coverage, which somehow finds Jalen Coker in stride, who takes it in the remaining 20 yards for a 53-yard TD. The Panthers defense gets a 3-and-out of their own, and with 26 seconds left, Carolina is in the 49ers red zone for the first time this game. Unfortunately, Bryce Young's second ball into a pack of defenders doesn't go as well as the first one, as it's picked off in the end zone, and D. Winters returns it all the way out to the 32. As a result, the Panthers go into the half still down 7-14. The 49ers start with the ball first in the second half and start strong, as Purdy finds Jawan Jennings running wide open down the left sideline for a 66-yard touchdown, extending their lead back to 14. A good kick return and a deep pass have the Panthers on the edge of the red zone again, but the 49ers rally and tackle on 3rd and long, bringing Ted McMillan down short of the line of gain. Instead of trying to convert the 4th and 3, Carolina takes the safe points and hits the 31-yard field goal. Both offenses stall out a bit late in the 3rd, but Carolina manages to strip sack Purdy as he attempts to escape the pocket, recovering the fumble on the 27-yard line. This short drive is all Rico, who pounds the ball down to the 3 and then scoots into the end zone untouched on this screen that fooled the entire San Fran defense. Trying to cut the deficit to 3, they go for 2, the pass protection holds up, buying Bryce enough time to hit Xavier Legette in the middle of the end zone. The 49ers offense grinds its way all the way down to the 13-yard line, but on 3rd down, the Panthers get to Purdy and sack him all the way back to the 22-yard line. That stop keeps this a one-score game as the 49ers hit the 39-yarder, extending their lead to 6 with just under 2.5 minutes left. On 4th and 5, the Panthers need to convert to stay in this game, so they try to go back to that screen play that worked previously, but this time the 49ers stiffen out and stop Rico short. The 49ers aren't able to truly ice this game as the Panthers get a stop on 3rd down, bringing down CMC well short of the first down marker. However, former Panther Eddy Pinero hits the 49-yarder to make this a 2-score game with about a minute and a half left. The Panthers make a strong last-ditch effort as Bryce fires deep to Jatavian Sanders, but there's just not enough time left in this game and they come up short. San Francisco gets the win at home, 27-18. I definitely give San Fran the edge in this one. I mean, it has been a crazy season where truly anybody can win on any given Sunday, but I think the 49ers have the advantage here. It's certainly less of an advantage than I would have expected preseason. The Panthers have been playing above expectations so far, and the 49ers have basically sacrificed a player a game this year, but I'm not surprised to see them pull out this win. Now, both of these quarterbacks were kind of game managers in this one, but there's a real gap in their managerial quality. Purdy came up just shy of 200 yards, but he was the absolute pinnacle of efficiency. 90% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, just classic, take care of the football, get the first down, don't turn it over football. Bryce actually had more yards, getting up to 230, but a pretty rough 59% completion percentage, plus that 1 interception in the end zone which took points off the board. The run game was the real difference between these two teams, and it's really been the story of the 49ers all season. As long as CMC is healthy, this team can win a lot of games. 20 rushing attempts for 125 on the ground. In terms of raw yardage, that's just shy of his peak this season, but 6.2 yards per carry is a season high. The 49ers defense did a good job of containing Rico, limiting him to only 46 yards on 12 carries, though the game script definitely played a role in taking him out of the equation. On the receiving side of things, we see McCaffrey absolutely soaking up targets, leading all pass catchers with 7 receptions on the night, albeit for a very modest 38 yards. This is actually a rare case where a running back's production through the air in Madden lags behind the real world, as he's been averaging just shy of 70 receiving yards per game this season. Beyond him though, there's not a huge amount of true standouts on the stat sheet. Kittle being healthy has obviously given this offense a huge boost, as he brought in 5 catches for 59 yards and a touchdown. Down at the bottom of the stat sheet, we have Jalen Coker being a master of efficiency. That 1 catch we saw earlier in the sim was his only one of the entire game, giving him a final stat line of 1 catch for 53 yards and a touchdown. Things are a lot closer between these two quarterbacks in the Monte Carlo sim, though Bryce does retain a very slight lead in passing yards, 193 to 191. CMC now only has 80 rushing yards, while Rico gets a nice boost up to 77 yards, similar to what he put up against the Jets earlier this year. Over on the passing side of things, I actually forgot to update San Francisco's depth chart, So Kittle is out here, but if you just pretend it says George Kittle instead of Jake Tongas, it looks pretty reasonable. Finally, the score distribution for this game is really spread out. Not a single outcome occurred even 3% of the time. Funnily enough, with such a wide spread, the Panthers' final score in the Monte Carlo sim actually lines up perfectly with their Madden score, but the overall margin tightens significantly as it's a 20-18 San Fran victory. And it's the end of week 12 already, so we're updating all the standings. There's not much movement in the standings, so I'm going to take a little bit of a different look this week, breaking down the top offenses and defense in the sim and in the real world. Over in the AFC, the Ravens, Chiefs, and Chargers are all pretty much in a three-way tie for top scoring offenses, while in the real world, the Colts are far and away in the lead. Not surprising that these simulations didn't foresee the emergence of Indiana Jones. There's also no true standout defense in the simulation, while the Texans and Chiefs have been locking down opposing offenses in the real world. Over in the NFC, we've got 4 real simulation standouts: the Packers, Lions, Eagles, and Buccaneers. Now, the Lions are the highest scoring NFC offense as of writing this, but none of those other teams are in the top 4. On the defensive side, the Falcons actually lead the simulated teams, whereas in reality, it's the Rams by a pretty significant margin. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the incredibly strong, if unbalanced, Carolina Mai Tai. If you make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.